So first and foremost, some of you who may be new here may not know who Bob Wydra is. Any of you that have been here before will know that Bob is our vice president. He's also our photographer. Can you hear me? Okay. I got to put the mic in my mouth. Okay. So Bob Wydra, he's our VP. He's our photographer. He hasn't been here the last two events because he got hit by a car, and then as they transported him to the hospital, they found that he had a tumor on his kidney. So not so much a happy accident, but kind of a lucky thing that while he got hurt, they were able to catch it. Last Tuesday, they removed his kidney, and they say there's no evidence of further cancer. So we're hoping Bob's doing well. We've got a card I'm going to pass around if you'd like to sign it. And then, like this says, if you'd like to tweet him, it's @diditdirect. He'd love to hear from you. We also have some posts on our Facebook page if you'd like to just put a note on there. I know he's looking at it, and it kind of helps him to get through this, so we'd appreciate that. Oh, yeah, and I'll pass the card. And don't keep the pen. So why are we here? Education and networking, those are our two main focuses. So we want you to learn something. We want you to walk away with some takeaways from this event, but we also want you to meet each other, exchange business cards, exchange Twitter handles, connect with each other on LinkedIn. I mean, if you leave this event and you haven't made some new connections, you're kind of missing the boat. When do we meet? Third Wednesday of every month. If you ask me sometime, whoa, when's the next event? I might not know the actual day, but I know it's the third Wednesday of the month. We've only ever done it on the fourth Wednesday of the month one time when we couldn't figure out what our speaker was going to be, and that was probably 2 years ago. If you'd like to host, we're usually looking for a venue that'll hold 200 to 300 people. This event, I think, is 200. That's usually our minimum goal. We can certainly do smaller groups, but then we're basically turning some of you away. So if any of you have a venue where you'd like to offer to host for us, that would be excellent. If you'd like to sponsor, so help us to pay for the food, that would be excellent too. If you have ideas for speakers, if you want to speak, if you think you have a topic that's worthwhile to the group, we'd be glad to hear from you. Any of us in the black polos can give you more information. All right, so we got a big team now. Some of you may remember when there was like 3 of us. Now there's 11 of us. Bill Hurley, is he in the crowd? Where's Bill? He's out in the hall, so he can't be recognized, but Bill's our blogger. There he is in the doorway. He took over for Andy Rubens, has been doing an excellent job letting people know what happens at these events. So if you missed it, or you got to leave early, or you're not someone who takes notes and you want to be able to report to your employer what happened here, go to our website, SMBMad.org, and the blog posts written by Bill are really good recaps. Krista Ledbetter, is Krista in the crowd? This is usually where I tease Krista about how many tweets that she has. She has like 87,000 tweets or something like that, which is actually 70,000 more than the founder of Twitter. So that's why she's doing our Twitter. Emily Olson, she's our treasurer. She's in the back waving at us, so she makes sure we can pay the bills, and we appreciate that. Tyler, and I'm going to probably hopefully not butcher your last name, Pausic. Close enough? You're kind of shaking your head. Tyler's one of our new co-managers. He's kind of helping with a lot of special projects. He probably checked you in. Jeffrey Powers recently got rid of his ZZ Top beard, which was a big shock to a lot of us. He's growing it back, it looks like, maybe. He kept it. I jokingly asked him if he donated it to Locks of Love. I don't know if any of you actually saw it, but it was like down to here. He's our videographer, and he's one of our new co-managers as well. Lance Rates, somewhere in the room? Yeah, Lance stepped out of the room too. It's like these guys don't want to be recognized. Lance is the owner of Yola's Cafe. They're actually feeding us today, but he's also the vice chair of our nonprofit org as well. He's a longtime co-manager, great guy. You should talk to him. Please thank him and Lisa for feeding us today. Renee Ripp is not here today. She's generally the person who's running the Eventbrite stuff, and she's checking people in. She's definitely a good person to know because she's usually face-to-face with all of you. She knows the whole group. If you want to get connected with somebody, she's definitely a good person to talk to. Then there's me, Tony Rodriguez. I'm the president of the group. Been here since, I think, the second event we ever had, and have seen it grown from 40 people in the basement of a restaurant to what we have today, all thanks to you. So thank you very much. Paul Stokes here, running the slideshow and doing our AV every month, making sure that things look good up on the screens. He is our secretary, so I force him to take notes and listen to me blather on like I'm doing now. Mike Walsh, roaming around. Where's Mike? He handles our, oh, there he is, right in the front. He handles our Facebook and oversees the Twitter as well. He's kind of our social media guy for the group. He works for UW Athletics. He arranged for the last thing that we had at the Best Western. He's a good guy to know as well. And then Bob, who's not here today, but please do tweet him if you would. Wish him well. Okay, some upcoming events. So as you probably know, AmFam is one of our sponsors. Dream Bank is one of their components. They have a really cool facility downtown in Madison where you can go and just learn all kinds of really neat things and kind of promote your business. They have some events coming up. They're having a Pinterest party on September 22nd. They're having a Twitter for Basics class. I believe there's actually 2 classes during the day on September 24th. They're having a live webcast. I think it's actually centered around women in business, and it's how to be in business for yourself but not by yourself. I know when we introduce our sponsors in a moment, they can tell you a little bit more about these events, but if you want to register for any of these, it's amfam.com/dreambank. And then in October, our next event is a panel of people that use social media for dairy. So we've got Carrie Mess and Amy Tronson. Are either of you in the crowd today? No? Okay. So they gave me this kind of goofy title, More Than Just Milk. And we're actually still looking for a facility for that, so if anybody's interested in hosting us, that would be great. I know we're talking about maybe trying to do it on a farm or something, but we'll see how that works. And then in November, AmFam's actually going to be the speaker, so they're going to talk about branded content and the evolution of metrics, so kind of like a where we were to where we are now kind of a conversation. So this is where you can follow us. So if you're not already connected to us in all the places that you should be, these are the places that you can find us online. And then our event today is AT&T talking about their global social media strategy, things that they do to get the word out. Brought to you by our kind sponsors, and I will call up our premium sponsors, the Marriott, American Family, and Charter Business, if they'd like to say a word.
Thanks. I'm Michelle Wingate from American Family Social Media Team. Thanks for mentioning our Dream Bank sessions. I just want to point out the Twitter one next Tuesday is at noon and 6:30 at the Dream Bank. It's at 1 North Pinckney on the square, and Tom Buheim and Colin Kromke, Social Media Breakfast regulars, will be leading that session. We're also doing a giveaway for a social media session at the Dream Bank. It's a free lunch for you and 7 of your colleagues. We'll talk social media, whatever you want to do. There's a fishbowl out front, so you can drop a business card in there. We've been doing that every month at these breakfasts. We've done 2 of them, and they've been really fun. Finally, we're doing a giveaway today for, we have 2 iTunes cards of $25, so there'll be 2 winners. You may have already seen the tweet. We're asking you to tweet, who would you like to call? Someone has already said Ghostbusters, but it is okay to repeat that. So tweet today. We'll give the cards away at the end of the session.
Awesome.
I'm Beth Nielsen with the Marriott. Thank you guys for coming back again this month. It's an honor to host you guys, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
So modest.
Hi, I'm Tom with Charter Business. I also have my associate Stacy in back there. We're your high-speed internet and phone service provider. We're not your typical cable guy. And today we are going to be doing a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. Before we do that, one little statistic that you might find interesting. They're predicting that companies that address their bandwidth needs now that are growing will be 3 times more likely to grow their business than their competitors. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking at what your bandwidth needs as your business grows. So we're going to do this drawing for the Amazon gift card. There's not a lot of tickets in here, so you guys are missing out on some $50 free.
Wendy Hathaway?
Wendy Hathaway? All right.
So connect with Tom after the event.
Yep, we'll get you. Just bring up your information. We can get you afterwards, and then we'll get that off to you.
Hi, I'm Lisa from Neola's Cafe. We catered your meal today, and we would love to cater any meal that you have coming up. Our calendar is filling up, so give us a call and we can cater for you.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, and then I put the slide back in. I'd been not doing it for a little bit. I want to make sure to thank Carrie Beck. She handles our LinkedIn channel for us. And then I do want to give a special shout out to Bethany, who already introduced herself. This is like the 4th or 5th time she's hosted us, and I think this is like the 2nd emergency hosting where I basically send her an email with the title help, and she's just come through for us every time. She does a great job coordinating these events. The rooms are always nice, the spread's always been nice, and the hospitality is excellent, so please give her a hand. And then if you are tweeting, if you would please include our hashtag. That'll allow people to follow the conversation. If you're not a Twitter user yet, I would encourage you to be one. And I think that's really where a lot of us connect pretty frequently, and you'll definitely catch Krista on Twitter. She's giving me a dirty look. So today our presenters who are sitting in the front row, Jim Greer and Laura Connor, I'll let them introduce themselves, but I do have their Twitter handles up there. Hopefully you can read those. If not, we'll get Krista to push them out for you so that you can mention them, follow them if you would. And if you guys already have your mics, are you good? Are you ready? Can we cue them up?
So just really briefly to touch on, now I'm very, very loud, AT&T here in Wisconsin. It was founded in Wisconsin in 1882. So we've been around for a really long time. Okay, it seems, okay. But a little bit about AT&T today. As you can see up here on the screen, we're investing heavily in Wisconsin. AT&T nationally as a company is the largest investor of private capital in the United States. They invest about $20 billion with a B every year in the United States. And here in Wisconsin, in the last 3 years, nearly $725 million. And this year alone, we've already invested $140 million. So we're really investing heavily in Wisconsin. Another just sort of quick fun fact is that AT&T, from a technology perspective, has innovated and done a lot of technology testing here in Wisconsin. We recently completed testing the newest small cell technology, which is, if you live in an urban environment, placing smaller cells instead of large cell towers in Waukesha. It was one of 2 places in the whole country we tested it. So really, we're a national company, but we have a lot of ties here locally.
This slide is maybe a little corporate, but it's just kind of an umbrella overview of our approach as multiple business units, multiple teams try to communicate as the brand, both externally and internally. So we call it our one AT&T approach. Like I said, collaborating across all the business units, and our handful of goals that we try to keep to are engaging to support the brand, being transparent and human, and real people behind the globe, really providing help to reduce turnover and churn of our customers, and just correcting misinformation where we can and providing true actionable help, sharing cool stuff, sending our customers things that we find interesting, that we think they're going to find interesting, positively impacting Net Promoter Score, Jim.
And so that's like a very sort of corporate term. Net Promoter Score is a metric that really sort of looks at positive and negative views from customers and people who engage with the brand, and sort of trying to create more brand ambassadors out there who really talk positively about the brand.
And then lastly, really cultivating our communities to grow and create advocates for our brand. So all these lovely bubbles are how our corporate communications team comes together to communicate as a brand. And this was a personal inclusion for me because so many brands do social media differently. And for some brands, it's the e-com team. For some, it's the customer service team. For some, it's the advertising team that really drives the strategy. And for us, a big part of it is the corporate communications team that both Jim and I are on. And we ladder up into a larger global marketing organization. But then as we ladder down into how that all plays out, it is earned and owned platforms that we manage. And everything from traditional media, which is the side of the house that Jim owns, to up and to the left, the social media and social advocacy, working with our blogger teams, which kind of goes across both the media relations and the social team, and then managing our own platforms, our website, our .net, our .com, and the content that lives there.
So we're going to talk a little bit about community engagement, and we sort of use this to, it says here, enhance the brand experience. And I want to talk a little bit about the brand because I think it's important to identify. AT&T as a company, from a brand perspective, has gone through a lot of changes over the past few years. The launch of the iPhone was a revolutionary change in the industry, and I think people were surprised at what that meant from the network side of the business. And that led us to have a lot of brand challenges, and it's something we're still trying to overcome. Like I said, we're investing heavily in our network, and our network's gotten a lot better and sort of grown with the changes we've seen in how people use data and how mobile people are, but that still has presented a brand challenge, and it's still something that we sort of fight with every day.
So the structure of today is going to be both our community engagement, which is our team, one-to-one customer communication in the social space, and then on the reactive side, and then on the proactive side, our content development strategy. So first we're going to walk through community engagement. So this is a slide that I love, and the backstory here is when we first started, in 2008, 2009, we launched Facebook and Twitter as the brand. Like Jim said, it was an interesting time to do communications on behalf of AT&T, and we were one-dimensional. Every day we were talking about the network. We were trying to correct misinformation. We were educating people. We were listening, and once we kind of emerged from the sprint of getting these things launched, coming up with our strategy, we realized that in addition to just correcting misinformation, we were listening, and when it required it, we were being human and going off messaging, and our strategy needed to be a lot more multifaceted than just correcting misinformation. And so it has definitely grown, and today we kind of live by 4 pillars. And I guess if you think of, I was trying to come up with a good example or a succinct example of how we play this out. And if you think of me sitting at my desk listening to what's coming in on behalf of the brand, say there's a game at Miller Park and people are tweeting about it. I listen for the inspirational stuff, what people are doing with our network and our products. And I try to cultivate that and celebrate that and, take that inspiration and use it to create something else. And I try to be helpful. If someone tweets that they're not getting service, maybe give them a place where they can find Wi-Fi. And that's a very, simple way to do it. But then there's also, giving them a life hack, linking to a BuzzFeed article, linking to something that's helpful but also really fascinating. Encourage participation. So give customers and our fans a reason to continue to engage with us, whether it's polls or questions, contests, and then celebrating our products, celebrating our people, our employees, and our latest devices So like I said, our goal is to be inspirational, be helpful, be timely, and our team has to know a ton of messaging. They have to know a lot about pretty complicated stuff in order to communicate on behalf of the brand. But then in addition to that, we challenge them to go one step further and use that stuff as the foundation that lays a really creative response. And so up here we have a couple of fun examples where, my team hasn't had to ask for permission to tweet this stuff as the brand. They know how we communicate, what's appropriate. I just saw last night that someone posted on Facebook that they can't even get service at Hogwarts. And my team, without batting an eye, their response was something like, well, we mere muggles can't find platform 9 3/4, so if we could, we would put cell towers there. And it was such a confident, quippy response that I think is a really important part of doing social, that knowing what's appropriate for your brand, knowing the place that you play in, but then being human. I mean, making jokes as you would if you were communicating with your friends. And so the way that shakes out is our team owns or shares the one-to-one interactions with our customer care team. And this is the kind of behind-the-scenes breakdown of the types of questions we own. That Corp is very brand, policy, network outages, the mass scale things that don't require individual assistance. And customer care is that individual assistance, that someone's billing is constantly inaccurate, troubleshooting if their UVerse DVR box isn't recording. That's something that our customer care team jumps on, takes the conversation offline. And obviously there are gray areas, so we spend all day sitting in a good old-fashioned chat room. And actually it's pretty fascinating that between a traditionally trained corporate communications team and a traditionally trained customer service team, there are a lot of differences in how we approach communication, that everything I've given you guys as far as being timely, being human, going off the cuff, that is very foreign to them. But customer assistance and professionalism and providing really good, solid help when someone really just needs some help is what they're really good at. And so our two teams play a really fascinating role together. And sitting in that chat room all day has been an awesome learning experience, I think, for our team and for theirs.
And I would just mention here, I think one of the other interesting things, and one of the nice things about the way that this is structured, and I'll just use network outages as an example. Often you'll see people who run into a network issue, for example, will tweet about it, they'll post something on our Facebook wall about it, and because our team is integrated, I'll get a call from someone on the national social media team saying, hey, we saw a couple tweets in La Crosse, Wisconsin, do you know what's going on there? And I can engage locally with our network people. And I think sort of having that sort of integration horizontally and vertically sort of makes it a lot easier, and sort of helps that information spread more quickly so that we can respond quickly.
So this is one of my favorite little case studies as far as what our team has done and what has happened to us since we started. I think it was around 2009, 2010. Our team in our constantly looking for trends and monitoring for issues found that Sundays when we were off the page or overnight when our team was at home, there was a core group of just a cast of characters, I guess, that was on the page proactively jumping in and saying, like, when someone would post an issue, say, they're at home, they're asleep, they'll be back first thing in the morning and they'll get to your problem. And we would scroll through in the morning and we'd, jump on the problem, but then kind of be like, well, thanks guys, thanks for jumping in. And we realized that they were the same people. And I think it was actually right after The Hangover came out that these guys started calling themselves the Wolf Pack. and it was the AT&T Wolfpack, and it was completely organic. It was nothing our team put into place, but we very quickly worked to cultivate that and to give them some structure and give them some love. And we started small with, every once in a while we'd send them an accessory to review. But they were so smart about products and the brand and how to use the social space that we would up that a little bit. And then we gave them a device, and then we brought them to CTIA. And it's a really fascinating evolution of media and influencers, because we used to have a team that was just dedicated to doing device reviews with your local ABC affiliate. And then that evolved into a team that was doing device reviews with bloggers. And now we have another team that does device reviews with influencers. And we consider these guys our influencers. And they continue to be organic. It's never paid. They can come and go as they want. Believe us, they rip us from time to time. When we do something they don't like, they tell us about it, and they tell us about it publicly. But it's been a fascinating thing to watch that they came together on their own, but with kind of our nudging and our molding, they've been a really cool, structured advocacy group for us. And so in a minute, we'll get into how our team that wears two hats not only does community engagement, but does content development. And this is kind of, I think, a fascinating lead into that, in that as our team was monitoring for issues and for trends, we saw in like November of last year, people starting to say how much they loved the It's Not Complicated commercials, with Beck Bennett and the kids sitting on the rug talking about what's better, faster, or slower. And it was a constant trend. People saying they fast forward throughout commercials, but they always watch that one. They go to YouTube to watch it again. And so it was an opportunity actually for our monitoring team to ladder up and communicate that, hey guys, we're seeing this on social. Can we create something for these guys? Create something that, will give them kind of the peek behind that curtain, because we're hearing that they love it. So this was our result.
We are here at the AT&T It's Not Complicated shoot round 5. It's Not Complicated is a campaign of Beck Bennett talking to a series of 4 young people about things like why faster is better than slower, why bigger is better than smaller, and why
sharing's better than not sharing.
Sharing is better than not sharing.
The basic features of the 4G
The tenets
network
of life.
And, just seeing it from a more simple perspective, I guess. We do scripted versions just in case, but they never make it to air.
That's
really.
true. I think we've had one that was slightly, the concept was a little bit more scripted, and then what ended up on the spot was actually just improv.
Yeah.
We try to go for as long as we can with the conversation just spilling out as normally as possible with the kids coming up with their own stuff, and then oftentimes that'll sort of spiral into something that's completely unusable or insane, and we have to kind of get it back on track. So it's guided improv overall, and then everything that you see on TV is 100% out of the minds of children.
Right, because the way they say it, it's just so much.
I'm talking about us.
Oh!
Children.
Out of the minds of children, right here.
We're buddies.
We're buds.
Yeah. Same mind. It's not hard to get them to be funny.
Because they're naturally funny, but
there is a lot of can you please put your shoulder a little bit farther to the left because you're in their shot, or can you please stop kicking the bottom of the table?
Can you please stop playing with your mic? But or they're like on the table and they'll be like moving their hands on the table and it'll be making like a sort of sound. It's like, no, you can't do that. And then they'll just start going like that with their feet. You can't do that either.
It's all so funny.
It's
There's
also funny,
so many things that, it's the biggest bummer I think for me is that people can't see the literally hundreds of spots we could be editing and putting online. I think that people respond to the ads. I hope people will respond to the ads because they do feel like they're coming out of a pure place, because you like seeing kids be themselves. We've been doing a lot of these. We've been doing them for over a year now.
Yeah.
Congrats to us.
Way to go. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Great job.
And congratulations to America for hopefully enjoying them.
Yeah, great taste, guys.
So this was just an awesome opportunity for our social team, which is in the trenches every day, to communicate with our video team. And I think that is a really important part of social overall, is the multiple teams being able to listen to each other, and our video team was so nimble when we came to them with this. They were like on site, on the set, and acted really quickly to pull this together. And so I think it's kind of breaking down those silos, to use a corporate term, to have all your teams ready to listen to each other and act quickly. So like I said, now we're going to get into our content development and how our team puts together the content that we push out proactively that hits your news feeds and Twitter handles every day.
So this is the AT&T.com/About Us page, which internally we call the newsroom. It's really sort of the place where we collect things before they go out. So, usually it'll get posted and housed in the newsroom, and then all the different channels, whether it's traditional media or social media, will sort of, pull things from the newsroom and then cycle them out.
So to bring that to life for you and explain how that happens, a lot of the time our team works in a way where we each own different business units. So like I work on mobility a lot. So when we have a device launch, I work with that team to understand when the announcement's coming, what the timing is, what we need to communicate, and then we strategize ahead of time how it's going to play out across the channels that make sense. So for this example, tomorrow is our big Drive for Pledges Day, the It Can Wait, No Texting While Driving Pledge Day. And so in advance of it, our team sat down with the team that leads that and tried to come up with ways we could generate some interest and awareness for the campaign ahead of time. And it started with a video, a documentary, a 30-minute documentary that our video team created. And we decided it would live first and foremost on the newsroom via YouTube. So that was kind of home base. But then we took a step back and, what are the channels that can play well with video? Facebook, Google+, and actually Pinterest. So we put it there to start. And then, it's such a powerful subject, it didn't quite make sense for Instagram. So we took photos from the premiere event and we used those on Instagram. And I think it's
a lot of times things happen so quickly in our business that really having the intuition about what works for each channel and not trying to push one asset across multiple channels is a really important part of the process. And sometimes, being on the social team and working with the powers that be, sometimes people want you to push stuff out fast. They want you to get it out there, get your message out there. But having the confidence to step back and say, that's not going to work in this channel, or that's not appropriate here, or plastering that message in the space doesn't play well with the audience that's on that channel. So we think about the content, the asset that's going to be created, or that we need to create, the channel it's going to work on, the audience, and how they'll receive it. We always in advance share that information with our community management team so that they're prepared, because they're going to get questions. We know they will. So that they can speak about it in an educated way. And then are there third-party influencers, partners, organizations that we're working with who can retweet us, who can share our content, who can share theirs? Are there bloggers who will be interested in it? And then will there be media interested in it? So it's all of those processes that we hit before we try to push something out.
Well, additionally, for this campaign, for example, there's a local component as well. Our public affairs and external affairs team, which are sort of our community managers in the communities, for It Can Wait, they go around local high schools and do events with stakeholders where they try to drive this message home and they screen this documentary. So not only is this going on sort of nationally and in social space, but locally we have people who are bringing these messages to high schools and community groups and college.
That's a really important part of what we do as communicating more on a national level, is that so many of these relationships are cultivated on a local level. So our social team tries to be really connected to those on the ground because for an announcement like this, it's really important. And if you can imagine an outage or any kind of localized issue, our two teams being in sync and being connected is crucial.
Well, I think from a traditional media perspective, For example, this documentary, one of the stories featured in it, I don't know how many people have seen it, is a boy from Milwaukee. So we were able to drive traditional media coverage in newspaper and television because of the features, one of the feature stories is about a boy from Milwaukee who was hit by a woman driving a car with a and sort of what his life was like and what that experience has been like. So sort of hit this message locally because it is important.
And then the last topic that we look to, and I think for a lot of times it's in the forgotten one, is our internal teams. Our employees are incredibly passionate about what we do and what they do, and they're proud of what they work on, and they're proud of what their colleagues work on. And so setting up an avenue to communicate in a dedicated and structured way with our internal teams and empowering them to share their news. I think it is such a missed opportunity when, especially for a company as big as ours, when an employee sees a project that came out of their own company, they weren't able to share with their social channels and their personal channels. And so by having what we call the AT&T social tribe, we empower them to do that. And the goal is we never ever ask them to share anything that they're not interested in. We just tee them up in case it is something that they find fascinating. And sometimes they surprise us. Sometimes stuff that we think is really cool they don't connect with, and that's totally fair. Actually, sometimes a good barometer for the outside world. That, you know, if our employees are driving with it, a lot of times we'll ask why, and work with them first before we continue to push it out. And then on the flip side, other times they surprise us in being really fascinated in an on-ground campaign that we're doing that we might have thought was a bit smaller than we expected it to be. So they share everything from network news to device announcements to the in-wing stuff and encourage them. We will provide them with tweets and suggested messaging, but a lot of times they use what is most comfortable to them, and that's really what we encourage. And then to make sure we're always transparent and always compliant. When the employees do that, they tweet hashtag ATT employee afterwards. So I talked about earlier the way we're set up is that each of us connect with one of the business units, and when a device announcement comes in, I work on it, and when the U-Person announcement comes in, like a TV or internet announcement, someone else works on it. But there are opportunities, again, as we listen to what's going on in the social space for our team to just come up with ideas that we think will resonate. And we've noticed over the years that a lot of times the network, the AT&T network, is kind of an abstract concept. That people don't quite understand what goes into it, what goes into maintaining it. And last fall, I guess, someone on our team was sitting on the call with someone talking about maintaining the network in Alaska. And our team thought, what a cool story to tell. That these are our employees who are out in crazy inclement weather all the time, making sure those in Alaska, who a lot of times in winter probably need to be connected the most, are able to stay connected. And so our videographer and producer out to Alaska in the dead of winter last year to follow these guys around and just watch what they do on a day-to-day basis. And it started with a bit of an employee story, which we thought we knew would play well internally, but just kind of thought we'll see how this goes externally. We'll do a consumer blog post on our newsroom. But we found, staying connected with our blogger teams, it actually had some really good lifestyle connections and human interest stories with the tech blogs. So we'll let you take a look.
Jerry Collins, Super Bay Hospital, 35 calls, oil and water here. It was American Battle. 35 feet away, it was a big one.
Scary comes not just with temperature, sometimes it comes with snowfall too, and with wind.
Like basic range right now. I bring enough stuff in an emergency bag for 3 days.
bringing us is unique. It provides opportunities that I can get in the way. It's a blessing.
So we were pretty lucky that, we had the resources to be able to send someone out there. But I think the big takeaway here is that our team was listening and noticed that the network, the lack of connection with what the network is was a trend. And then not just stopping there, how can we direct that with messaging, but just how can we blow this out and tell a story. And our asset to tell that story ended up being a video. But I think if it's a team that has to be a little bit more nimble or a little bit more scrappy, it can easily be a big image. But it's going one step further to tell that story in a really rich and engaging way. And so, as we all know, a lot of times we can plan, we can think about how to tell a story, and sometimes a story hits the pop culture world and connects with your audiences. And part of monitoring every day, I think, is knowing what resonates with the people in your communities and having a really, really good handle on what they're interested in. So we manage all AT&T brands, one of them being the AT&T First Facebook page. And that is a community that is passionate, nerdy about entertainment news. And so when Roger Ebert passed away, we knew immediately that that would be a big thing for our community. And, it's not, joining in that conversation is just to join in their condolences and to join in missing out on someone that was a big part of the world that they cared about. So we worked quickly with our graphic designer just to create a very simple image. From an approval standpoint, a legal standpoint, we can't use his likeness, and which is probably better for us that we can just from a very high level pay homage to someone who in that industry was a really big deal and a really important part of that world. And so this post did well for us, but it's not as much about it doing well as it is just almost providing our communities with an asset to share. And if you see it, it did pretty well from the share perspective, and I think that's because we were giving our communities something to post in their own feeds, to connect with and to tell their own communities and their own following about what matters to them. And this is probably a quick presentation to talk about the whole thing that happened to AT&T in the real-time standpoint last week. Our strategy, our narrative on social, on the AT&T mobility page, the main page, for 2 years has been the acknowledgement, I guess, and the celebration of the fact that mobile phones are a part of everything we do. A lot of times people see the world through their phones. And so we posted an image for 9/11 that we thought was in line with that motif, was to us very much in line with that strategy. But as many of you probably know, our social communities immediately told us otherwise. And we had a team in place that was listening and quickly communicated back to the people that could push that up the chain that it wasn't quite going as we thought. And to us, we're human, and 9/11 is a very sacred day, and we knew that, and we knew the image that we were using was sacred. But actually, last year we posted a similar image that was met with really positive response, and so that knowledge kind of encouraged us to go with the same concept for this year, in addition to it just being how we always communicate on social. But I think lots of lessons learned for our team. We acted quickly, we removed it, we posted an apology from our chairman, which is, that's a big indication of how much that feedback meant to us and how much we want beforehand the content that we post, and knowing that cultural events, things that are larger than our products and our people and what we do every day, has to be met with an incredible amount of scrutiny communicated around those cultural events. And obviously 9/11 is the biggest, a huge one. But I think the takeaway is, for all cultural events, if we're going to join a space that we didn't create, that we need to be really careful about how we communicate that.
Another point to make on that one is that, for people who maybe didn't follow what AT&T does regularly and on the side, they may misconstrue something because they're not used to sort of how our brand communicates. And so it's sort of out of context, and I think that can sort of affect people's viewpoint as well. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of us know that the Facebook Edge rank is the algorithm that they use for what hits news feeds is a bit of a confusing beast. And I think we know that the news feed is a special place, and that when you log into Facebook and something pops up in your news feed, I mean, that's not a piece of content you went after. That's a piece of content that came to you. And so we know that's a place that we need to be careful of, and that not all of our fans see what we post every single day. And so a post like our 9/11 post that quickly got a lot of engagement is going to rise up in Facebook Edge rank and hit more of a following than maybe our typical posts usually do. And so, I think that was a big part of people not being expected.
Okay, so this is a really cool thing, and I had the opportunity last year to go and take a tour of this. It's what they call the PR knock. It's built on a model of something we do in the company for our network. We have what's called the GNOC, which is the Global Network Operations Center, which is in New Jersey, which monitors our network in real time. And so in June of 2012 in Dallas, they launched the PR NOC, which monitors in real time social network and the internet and news. And in the top right image, you can see it's a room that has a set of screens all the way across it. Each screen, I think, is 60-something inches. And then this longer stretch is sort of a cobbled together version of it. And in real time, it shows sort of the impact of us and our competitors in the news and social space. And it's also, there are people who are in the room monitoring at any given time. And as things happen, they show up, and they're color-coded and size-coded as well, so you can see. So for example, if there was if a customer who is an influencer online is having an issue in Chicago, that would show up geographically and also in the mention feed. And if they were a significant influencer, it would show up larger to indicate to people that would be something we need to address quickly. It also is a great way, along the bottom there is a timeline over time of sort of the impact of AT&T and who's talking about it and sort of what share of voice we have online. So this is a great tool that we can use. There's also a mobile version, so executives and people on the social media team, if they're out and about with their iPad or whatever, they can view this and sort of see what's going on in real time. And it's a great way of sort of keeping track of things online.
So taking our learnings from 9/11 and taking the PR NOC structure and the learnings that come out of that, thought we'd talk, to close this out, a little bit about social crisis management as a brand. And as a big brand that provides the infrastructure for a lot of how people communicate, we have a responsibility to be really keyed in and not only be human, like I've talked about, but knowing what we provide, the service that we offer, how that plays into our customers' lives. And for Sandy and Boston, the network was a huge part of how people communicate. And it's texting loved ones and calling people to make sure they're okay. And for a while around the Boston finish line, we were proactively tweeting, making sure people in the area knew not to be texting or calling unless it was an emergency, because it was such a flood of communications, so abnormal to what the network usually sees. It was a bit of a crisis for our network, that people needed to get in touch with other people. And so we had to communicate that to our followers. And it was fascinating, the retweets and the support we got from that we saw people proactively being like, hey guys, I just heard if you're on the AT&T network, don't communicate unless it's an emergency. If it is an emergency, by all means, but keep the network highway open so that those who really need it can communicate. And as far as natural disasters, during, was it Sandy of this year, that we sent not only our additional, we call them cows, they're cell towers on wheels, up to the area, but we sent our videographer along with some of our tech teams to film what they were doing in the area, just so we could communicate, back to our own employees, back to our teams, what was happening in the area.
And I think that, I'm always amazed at the willingness of our employees to go and help. Sandy's a great example. We sent a number of trucks and crews from here in Wisconsin who literally packed up and went, and they actually spent a month in eastern Ohio and in the Northeast, helping our existing teams there restore service and work, in this case, on the wireline network to make sure that things were up and running. And so these are people who are voluntarily, leaving their families for that period of time to go out and work. And it's amazing how willing these people are to sort of be part of those rapid deployment teams who go out and help and fix it. And the company does respond quickly, whether it's a forest fire or flooding, they sort of are always ready to deploy a cell on wheels or other technology to sort of go in and help with any emergency efforts.
And as social communicators, I used Boston as an example where we believed it was really crucial for us to get that message out there. But then I also think there have been times in national crises where it's important for us to be more on the silent side, that the network pretty much always plays a role, but there are times where people kind of know what to do. And I think immediately during Sandy, we got the word out about how to communicate on our network, but then it was just really about listening, that there was nothing proactive needed from us, and just listening and then communicating back to our internal team so that they could use the information we were hearing to make decisions or empower us to respond to people. And so I think it's a lot of times that balance of knowing when you need to communicate and knowing when your customers need you, but then also knowing when to be silent.